Welcome to Zeke. Okay,
Who's Zeke?
I don't know. Welcome to Geek Zone Wrestling, a podcast by two lifelong wrestling fans who just want to talk about wrestling. And that was easy for me to say.
Quite.
Yeah, we are less than 24 hours removed from Money in the Bank.
God, what a show.
It was pretty good. Yeah, there was one match that was expected to be meh, but turned out to be better. And there was a match that was expected to be yay, and ended up being. And then two matches that were exactly as expected, in my opinion.
I agree.
So we started off the show with the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which was
Well, let's start with the competitors.
that's what I was trying to remember.
Alexa Bliss, Naomi,
Stephanie Vaquer,
Julia,
Rhea,
and
Roxanne
Perez. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to go in my head who they were. And I've had to remember a little bit. It's been like 15 hours.
So the women, they put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was incredibly good. We kind of expected it to be good with the names that were on the ticket. But there were some really, really good spots. I was thoroughly impressed with the majority of them. I thought covering Rhea with ladders was kind of ingenious.
Yeah. Well, and then like later in the match, Roxanne's like hanging on the rope, and Rhea just like throws the ladder off and like gets up slowly, staring at her, and Roxanne's like, "Ah!" And us looking at each other and was like, and it was at this moment that she knew she fucked up. I also thought it was really awesome that during the match everybody was, I don't want to say given their chance to shine,
but I mean they really were.
Well, I mean, it was obvious it was not one person at a time.
Correct.
There were multiple people at once, who were really doing cool shit.
Yeah. But everybody did get their opportunity to shine. I think everybody got to show off their best attributes and best abilities. And I think I wasn't. Oh God, I'm going to get hate for this. I wasn't real thrilled with the end. I get that Naomi probably needed it, but I didn't want her to get it. I was kind of hoping for Alexa Bliss.
I was too, just because foremost. I wasn't sure if she was ever going to come back. And it was like Becky said during the, like the press conference.
Yeah, afterwards.
Like Naomi walked out.
Yeah.
Now, I get that was during the whole Vince thing, but it's just, she walked out and then comes back a few years later, and it's like, okay, well, forgive and forget. I feel like she really needed to have more. I get that, she just turned heel and was doing the whole Jade Cargill thing, but she had that tag team thing with Bianca, and then that story with Jade. She's had two storylines since coming back.
Right.
And, like, what has Alexa really had?
She hasn't had much of anything. I feel like she could have
She hasn't been back as long.
But I feel like she could have used that Money in the Bank a little bit more than Naomi.
Naomi has been back about a year longer than Alexa.
And that would have given Alexa a bigger storyline to follow, because it puts her more in the spotlight, more in the main event scene, and it would give her a reason to really delve into who her character is now.
And it's not like with Naomi, she left because she was just like, screw y'all, I'm leaving. Alexa Bliss left to have a kid,
Yeah.
and she stayed home with the kid for a while and then came back. The reasons for them leaving are different. And like I said, Naomi's had 2 storylines. Alexa hasn't really had anything. And what I was kind of imagining in my head was, she could reform sort of like her Fiend thing. Because she's already kind of that character right now, but she's not acquainted with you, Wyatt Six.
Right.
And then, like she comes out with the Money in the Bank, and then all of a sudden the Wyatt Six come out and like behind her.
Yeah, I mean, and I was halfway thinking, it'd be great if the Wyatt Six got involved in this, in the
Or
Money in the Bank.
at the very least, Nikki Cross.
Yeah, and they help her to win the Money in the Bank, and that kind of starts drawing the conclusion that, hey, maybe Alexa is with the Wyatt Six, and then you come to find out later on, after storylines start to boil, that Alexa's actually the one in charge.
Yeah. And Uncle Howdy is her right-hand man.
Right. I think that would have been a far better storyline.
Even not necessarily right-hand man, but partner.
Yeah. I think that would have been a far better storyline than anything they're going to do with Naomi. I see probably in the future what's probably going to happen is they're going to have, the world title the women's world title go to Naomi, and then that's going to lead up to a Jade or a Belair versus Naomi. I'm kind of over that whole thing,
like, especially since Naomi said in the interview with Big E, Sam Robertson, and Vic Joseph, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like, well, is that whole thing with Jade behind you? No, you got heat with me forever.
Yeah, I'm done with it.
That was a terrible impersonation of Naomi, and I apologize.
I'm absolutely done with that whole storyline because when they had the chance, they just dropped it. Like when it was hot and I was ready to watch and see, okay, what's going to happen here? They just let it disappear and nothing.
And then they briefly brought it back, and then it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Because they dropped it because Naomi won the Elimination Chamber. Not Naomi. Bianca Belair won the Elimination Chamber.
And then, all of a sudden, and then it was, I got a world title. I don't care.
Yeah. And then she like mentioned it every now and then. And it was just, you would have Naomi or Jade just jump the other one.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then finally, WrestleMania, they have like the big, final. I was like, where was like the,
Well, and I mean, we both, I think, mentioned in our WrestleMania podcast that that was a match that could have easily been axed from WrestleMania in order to put in the SmackDown Tag Titles TLC match or something else. Yeah. Anything else. Because that was one of the, as far as I'm concerned, low points of Mania.
I agree. And I get that, maybe you want the big names on WrestleMania, and Jade is this huge comeback story at Elimination Chamber, and Naomi is, I mean, she's still a big name, even after everything that's happened.
Yeah.
But, you also have the Motor City Machine Guns, Street Profits. What was it? #DIY. Were they the third one in that match?
Yep, DIY.
And it's like, those are also very hot acts. The Motor City Machine Guns were a huge name long before they came to WWE. And this would have been their WrestleMania debut. Jade Cargill didn't debut at WrestleMania.
Well, and might I add that ladder match ended up being one of the most epic so far this year.
Yeah.
That match was insane.
And I personally have a I don't want to say a personal connection to that match specifically, but one of my favorite matches of all time
was the original TLC.
TLC at WrestleMania 17 between ENC, the Hardys, and the Dudleys.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, granted,
It's hard not to love that.
Lita, Rhino, and Spike Dudley were also involved in that whole TLC 2 shit. But, I mean, those 3 tag teams, watching them in a match identical to that almost.
Yeah.
So having them recreate it with 3 really good tag teams was kind of a big deal for me.
It was. It was a big deal, period. Like, those 3 teams put on arguably one of the best shows of the year so far. And ENC, Hardys, and Dudleys, I don't even think it's arguable that they put on one of the best matches ever. So, yeah, I was... The only problem I have with Money in the Bank is 3 of the combatants we knew right off the bat were not going to win. We knew that Vicaire, we knew that Julia
and Roxanne
were not going to win.
And it was a very strong, Rhea wasn't going to win because Rhea doesn't need it.
Right.
Rhea's already in the main event scene.
And she's already over. She doesn't need anything to get the crowd excited. She just shows up and the crowd gets excited. So it came down to Bliss or Naomi, and I would have far, far preferred Bliss to win, personally.
The reason that I think Bliss would have been better is, I said this last night, it's like Naomi, she's trying to be this, like, angry, tough girl, and she looks ridiculous. Like, she's all like, it's like, okay, what are you doing? That's
Yeah.
There are different ways that you can be a heel. You don't always have to be angry and, like, trying to look intimidating, because when you're trying too hard to be intimidating, you look like a little baby about to pout because he's not getting his way.
Yeah, I do feel that she is overselling it by a lot.
And Bliss's character is on point.
Yeah.
She's got the whole, like, oh, I'm going to beat the shit out of you.
And then she beats the shit out of you.
Yeah, I mean, she's like she's like the goth Barbie to Tiffy's,
Barbie.
Yeah. So
I think that would have made a far better story, like Bliss going after Stratton for the title.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of hoping that they would end up doing that anyway without Money in the Bank. I want it to be a build-up where you literally have, like, you have Tiffany Stratton as preppy Barbie, and then you have Alexa Bliss as gothy Barbie or punky Barbie.
Well, I think the Money
and then
in the
you have
Bank,
a Barbie off.
I think the Money in the Bank could have been the catalyst, not the reason for, but the catalyst of.
Well, the problem with the Money in the Bank is Alexa wouldn't need to have, like, a storyline with her, because she could just cash in.
Yeah, but
unless she won it and then Tiffany went after it.
But the storyline is she keeps showing up at Stratton's matches, making her wonder, is she cashing in? Is she cashing in? And that would play perfectly into Bliss's character because of the mind games thing that she got from Bray Wyatt. And I think that would have been a far better storyline.
But anyway, there are, like, Dominic Mysterio, I feel like, is a perfect example of how you can be a heel and not look intimidating. He's a smug dick.
Yeah, he's a cocky, arrogant prick.
And, some people can't pull off the intimidating, I'm going to, squint my eyes and puff my lips out and you're going to fear me. And Naomi is one of the people who cannot pull that off.
No, especially considering the fact
Becky Lynch is another one that can't pull that off.
Well, I mean, like, the reason she can't pull that off is because she's looking up at Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, women that are much, much bigger and stronger than her visibly. And it's hard to be the little guy and be like, I'm going to kick your...
Was that why Rey Mysterio was never a heel?
Probably, because it's hard to have the little guy pick on the big guy because it just doesn't, aesthetically, it doesn't work real well.
Hornswoggle.
When did he ever actually bully anyone?
No, that's what I'm saying. It would be funny. You know? Don't make me kick your shin.
I'm going to bite your ankle.
Actually, that would fit with Hornswoggle's character.
It would, perfectly. So speaking of Dom...
She was on the top of the ladder, Naomi was, and she's all like, grimacing, and it's like, oh my God.
You just won the Money in the Bank.
You suck. Why? If you were up there and you were like, yeah, see, look at me. Look at this.
Mm-hmm.
This is greatness. All right, cool. You're leaning into your hero character. That's all right. But she just looked ridiculous. And it's like, why are you giving someone who cannot portray their character well Money in the Bank?
I don't get it. But speaking of Dom, I believe they were next, weren't they?
Yes, and
Dom and Octagon Jr.
An almost impromptu match. It was announced at Worlds Collide,
which happened just before.
That match, I was not anticipating, so I had literally nothing, like no expectations for it because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And holy crap.
It was absolutely fantastic. Like those two.
Octagon Jr., that dude can spin.
Yeah,
he was doing all sorts of twirls.
Like he was doing all these corkscrew moves, and it looked like we discussed last night when he grabbed onto the ropes and springboarded over him, and it looked like he just stalled when he got to the top of just clearing the ropes. And then started his corkscrew.
Yeah, and it looked like he was going to do like a tope atomico. And then he's just like, he's up there. And I swear it was like time froze. And I was like, whoa, he's just suspended him. It's like, holy shit. He just spun him.
The amount of talent that dude has is not even fair.
And his, leading up to that, where he stalled, that whole sequence was awesome. Dom set him up for a 619, went for it. Octagon ducked. Dominic missed. Octagon pulled himself up and over the ropes. Dom went for a clothesline or a hit or of some sort.
It was like a kick. He tried to kick him or something.
And, Octagon moved out of the way, jumped up and kicked him. Dom fell down, and then he did that. And it was just this whole smooth sequence of, I don't want to say strikes, because not all of them hit, but they were attempted. And it was just awesome. The ending was meh. Liv got up top on the apron and distracted Octagon, so Dom was able to capitalize and
pull out the victory.
Hit the 619 and the frog splash for the win. I mean, which when they said it was going to happen, I'm like, they're not going to give the Intercontinental Championship to Octagon Jr. Yeah. I mean, the guy is currently in TNA and AAA. They're not going to give it to a guy who's trying to do three things.
Well, I think they're playing on the mystery now because they did, in fact, give the TNA title to Trick Williams.
Yes, but Trick Williams is not currently doing 3 shows.
No, but he is doing NXT and TNA.
Yes. But that's the thing with Octagon. He's doing a tag team in TNA. He's also in AAA. If they have him with the Intercontinental title in WWE, you're going to run into an issue if you can't have these people in the right spots. Right now, Trick Williams is mostly just dealing with the TNA title.
That's true. That is true.
But you would have Octagon, oh, well, we want you to do this. Well, we want you to do this. Well, we want you to do this. And he's like, I'm one dude. I know my name's Octagon,
but at the same time, because WWE acquired AAA, WWE could conceivably have given him the title, moved him to WWE roster for the time that he holds the title. Because, I mean, they ultimately make the decisions on, okay, are you going to be in AAA this week or are you going to be on SmackDown or Raw or.
Yeah.
Now,
But
TNA is a different story.
I did like the ability to see, like, the luchadors and stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool to see Octagon
I
Jr.
was upset that I missed Worlds Collide because ever since Rey Mysterio went to WWE, I've been like, man, these luchadors can do some crazy shit. And then I'm watching guys similar to that, like, Billy Kidman doing the shooting star press, Rob Van Dam doing all his weird crazy shit.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out this whole Mr. Iguana thing from last night. I didn't get to watch Worlds Collide either, but
it sounded like they kind of said he was a tag team with his puppet.
Yeah, and
I'm hoping that I just misunderstood, and the puppet is sort of like the Cobra.
No. I feel like I saw a video. Like I was checking social media and stuff, and I saw some of my favorite wrestling podcasty video guys, and one of them even posted something about Mr. Iguana for the World Championship, the WWE World Championship, and I'm like, wait, what? And I saw a clip of Mr. Iguana, and I guess they were up against another team, and one of those team members was fighting the iguana puppet.
Oh my God.
And ended up doing a Spanish fly on it.
Okay.
It was ridiculous. And it was hilarious all at the same time.
All right.
But yeah, the match with Octagon and Dominic was amazing. I was blown away by it. I thought they did a fantastic job, especially on short notice like that.
Yeah, and especially since Dom and Octagon haven't worked together.
Right.
Now maybe like before Dom officially, started wrestling, maybe, Ray had some of his luchador people. I don't know how close he is with any of these guys.
I don't either.
But, they may know each other. But professionally, since Dom started, he never would have faced him.
Yeah, theoretically, unless they've been doing it like Performance Center style.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. They may know each other and just have never, had a match. But this may have been, the first time they officially met.
It may have been.
It was yesterday.
But, yeah, they pulled off an incredible match. Loved every second of it up till, Liv got involved.
Yeah. Which
I get. Dom's still a heel.
Yeah.
Liv is still a heel. They're going to do heel stuff.
Yeah. But it's just, it's kind of a crappy, when he was doing that well, having it when that was like, man, but you were doing so well.
I think they just have to preserve his Weasley type character. And to do that, you don't win matches clean. You win dirty.
But anyway, that was the match that I had no expectations for, and it exceeded all of the expectations I'm sure I would have had.
So moving on.
This was the match that I had high expectations for, but it was not a bad match, but it's still I felt like could have been better. Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria for the Women's Intercontinental title. It was, it was a good match. There were lots of up and downs. They both did a really good job, but it felt like a repeat of their last match.
Well, I mean, that it kind of was. It was the third time recently that they've fought each other. So, yeah, you saw a lot of the same spots. You saw a lot of the same, type of moves and attitudes and all that stuff.
Now, they both, sold well for each other, and they do have good chemistry. But it was just,
See, I thought the match was really good. I didn't care for the aftermath.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb.
That I think that's what did it.
I was going to cover that once.
Yeah.
Once we announced who won, but
yeah, I don't think it was the match itself. Yeah. The match itself.
Well,
was
like I
really
said, it was
good.
good. The problem is you expect it to this was what I was thinking of as being sort of like, the climax, I guess. You had two matches, and this one was like the final hurrah.
Yeah.
There's, like Becky said, that she would never challenge for the title again if she lost.
But we knew
So,
that wasn't going to be the case.
yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, there's more on the line now than ever. So this one was going to be the big finale.
Yeah.
And it just ended up being on par with the other. So
I can agree to that with that to an extent. I still
that's
think
why I have my expectations not met, because it was still the same good level of match, but it was not that, final hurrah.
well, I'll be honest. I knew it wasn't going to be the final hurrah because as soon as they announced the stipulations of the match itself, I could have told you right off the bat who was winning and who wasn't.
Well, I knew that. I knew who was winning.
Because
I just thought it was going to be a bit grander.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. But I mean, we know that the now challenger is going to come back after that title, so we know we're going to see it again.
Yeah.
And we
But
kind of knew that.
After everything, I thought it was going to be like Becky was going to make her tap or pin her, and Becky was going to be like, now you have no way of claiming that I can't beat you. But instead, she won by rolling her up and grabbing the tights.
Yep.
And then, like you already mentioned, the aftermath of, Becky going out of her way to try and humiliate Lyra, only to have Lyra then be like, you know what, fuck this, and drop her hard.
See, I thought that whole final segment was really, really stupid. The agreement was you raise my hand if I beat you. Okay? So Lyra does that.
Begrudgingly.
Begrudgingly, yes. But she raises her hand. And then she goes to leave the ring, and Becky's like, no. You have to raise my hand on every side of the ring. It's like, well, wait, that wasn't the agreement. The agreement was you raise my hand, period. I would have just walked out of the ring and been like, screw you. But Lyra appeases her and holds her hand up, turns to all four sides of the ring, and then proceeds to try and leave. And Becky's like, no. You got to put my belt around my waist. That's when it got ridiculous for me. There was no part of the agreement that stated that. There's no reason she would have had to have done that. She could have just been like, okay, no, bye.
But basically, they just, for some reason, wanted to have Becky push her to her limit.
And then she straps the title around Becky's waist and German suplexes her. And then leaves. It's cool that she, finally got fed up and hit her and left, but
she should have just left in the first place. Like, I lived up to our agreement with that first hand raise. I don't gotta do this no more.
Yeah, we're done here. That's what got me. That's what kind of brought it down for me.
Yeah.
The match itself, I enjoyed thoroughly. I thought they did a great job. The spots were really good. They work well together.
Like I said, I was just thinking that this was going to be like, the one where everything was on the line. And I was like, man, this is going to be like the big one.
And
it was the same as the other ones, which was a really good match.
But, and as far as the roll-up goes with the tights, Becky's a heel now.
I know, but it's like
she has to do heel things.
The whole point was you can't beat me, and then she has to cheat to win. I wanted it to be this elevates her arrogance. But instead of elevating her arrogance because she pulled it off, it elevates her arrogance because, well, I'm sick of being disrespected. It's like, bitch, you were the one doing all the disrespecting.
Yeah, but that's what the heel does.
I know.
They take that and they twist it and they make it something that it's not so that it pisses everybody off.
And it worked.
It did. I just didn't like how the match ended. Well, see, like not
the Becky in the press conference is the Becky heel that she should be.
Yes.
Not when she goes out there and she's all like got this like really crappy scowl on her face.
Yeah, the huffy puffy stuff. Yeah.
the cocky, like, what'd you just say to the man? Like, that's the only way she can pull off a heel. She cannot be intimidating. She's too thin. She's not like Batista.
No, no.
Good God, she would be a weird looking woman if she looked like Batista.
So that
Now,
brings us
to men's Money in the Bank. Oh crap, we forgot to mention the spots during the women's Money in the Bank where they did the dual code reds onto the sideways ladder, and then Stephanie Vaquer did the Devil's Kiss onto the ladder.
Yeah, that was really amazing.
We got so focused on Naomi that we forgot to mention the
actual good stuff.
Yeah. Sorry about that, people.
Apologies.
So, men's ladder. The competitors were Solo Sikoa, Seth Rollins, LA Knight,
Penta,
El Grande Americano, and Andrade. This match was awesome. I was a little disappointed at a couple spots that they did that were very similar to the women's match, like putting a ladder sideways between the ladder standing in the ring and the turnbuckle, and then hitting a code red on the freaking ladder, or Mexican Destroyer, because it was Penta. But it's like, really, that just happened in the last match. Why couldn't you guys do something a little bit different? But one of the most innovative things that happened in that match
started from the very beginning.
Yeah. El Grande Americano took a ladder and leaned it against the outside of the turnbuckle post.
Yep.
And I'm like, why the heck is he doing that? And then, like, 3/4 of the way through the match,
it was damn near the end.
He climbs up that, goes onto another ladder,
which was leaning on the turnbuckles.
Yeah, so that ladder was leaning against the turnbuckle the opposite direction. And he went from the ladder he was on to that ladder. That ladder fell over onto the ladder standing up in the middle of the ring.
And he climbed up and proceeded to use the cotton swab that was inside of his mask.
Yeah, and he stopped the person who was about to grab the briefcase. And that was one of the most innovative things I have ever seen in that match.
It was awesome.
And, like, that's something I would want. Like a Kofi moment every year. Someone doing something innovative. Like, the first one that I really saw was Shelton Benjamin running up the ladder that was leaning across the ropes and doing, like a sort of a flip, but it was more of a senton. I'm like, holy crap! And then, you've got the ladders that are set sideways in the turnbuckle and against the ladder, and, on that apron, stuff like that.
But someone running up a ladder to get to the ladder.
Yeah. Those are what I like to see. The innovations of it. I just don't want to see
the same old crap.
Yeah. And that's why the whole Code Red thing was disappointing, because it's like, okay, we have 3 of them in the night. Like, it's like when everybody in the Rumble wants to kip up. It's like, it cheapens the moment if you're going to do it multiple times.
It cheapens the moment and it cheapens the move. That's the big problem I have with it. Because
now it's like, that's not as special because we saw it twice in the women's match.
Right.
And now the women's match isn't as special because the men are just like, we can do that. But all in all, there were a lot of really good spots.
A lot of really good spots.
My favorite part was when Seth Rollins called for Braun and Bronson. Sounds like a law firm. Call us at Braun and Bronson.
Both of them came out. Braun speared the life out of El Grande America. And then they proceeded to lay waste to everyone. And out comes JC Mateo and Jacob Fatu to save the day. So they start doing their thing. JC apparently got laid out.
Yep. He got speared through the barricade by Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
And what I thought was insane was Jacob Fatu went after Bronson Reed, and I kind of wanted Bronson versus JC Mateo because they have like identical body types. JC Mateo looks like Rhino with a little more athletic ability, and they had Jacob instead. But Jacob, like Bronson, ran against the ropes, and Jacob freaking picks him up for a pop-up Samoan drop, and I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, Bronson is no small dude.
No.
He would not be easy to
And
pop up like
the
that.
two of them made it look so smooth.
And
Like
so devastating.
like Bronson was able to, because obviously, when they do stuff like that, he jumps.
Yeah.
And so, it's not like Jacob did it all himself.
But there was plenty of airtime.
Yes, plenty of airtime. And it seemed like Jacob like had him on his shoulder for a second before jumping up and dropping him down. I'm like, what the fuck?
Dude was on.
The timing that the two of them had to have been in sync on was insane.
Yeah, it was immeasurable.
The two of them did that so perfectly. It looked like Jacob Fatu was a monster, which is the whole point.
Yeah. Can I tell you my favorite part?
Oh, I was getting there in a second. Bronson Reed is one of those guys. He's so big, it's really hard to be like, oh man, he's a good athlete, because what does he really do?
Not much. He does a tsunami.
Yeah.
That's about it.
When you see stuff like that, I see that he is far better than what you see on a regular basis.
Yeah, than what his character allows.
Yeah. Like, he's not just the big guy that, oh, well, I fall on people. It shows that he does know what he's doing and is capable of putting on a good show.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get that out there, because a lot of times it's really easy to be like, man, this guy can't do, like, he can't even do a drop kick. Like, he's pathetic. And
it's very reminiscent of something that happened later in the night that we discussed.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to.
But anyway, thank you for letting me put that out there.
Cool.
I feel like that's an important thing that's easy to overlook when you're watching.
I agree. I think that is an important thing to be out there. These guys are very talented, even if their characters do not allow them to express all of their talents. And I'll be the first to admit, I am not a Bronson Reed fan. I feel like he is very, very dry and has very little to offer.
Really? But he does the tsunami.
I know.
How is he dry?
That's why I used that analogy. At any rate, I feel like last night made me look at him a little different. I feel like maybe he does have more in his tank than what he's allowed to show. So my favorite part was shortly thereafter. Jacob Fatu, after laying waste to everyone, and I mean everyone, picked up Solo, brought him into the ring, and picked out the ladder for him, put it up, and Solo said, no, I want that ladder. So Jacob goes and gets that ladder and puts it up and keeps turning it so that it matches where he is, and Solo starts to climb. And Jacob's, the watchdog. He's watching out for anyone else that's around. And then he turns and looks up, and as Solo's touching the money in the bank, he grabs Solo's ankle.
And he's literally, like, his fingertips are touching it, but he can't, like, fully grip it. So he goes up, and then all of a sudden, like, he can't lift his leg. He's like, what? Which, by the way, Solo was comedic gold in that.
He actually,
now that he's been allowed to show personality, he's just like his freaking brothers.
I agree. He's impressing me more now, but I'm still not a huge fan of his. I don't see him as world champion material yet.
But the problem is, for the first 2 years of his main roster, he was literally just stand there and stare.
Yeah. So the jury's out for me. I'm not totally sold on him yet, but
But him mocking people, and
yeah, I'm appreciating a little bit more.
it's like I've always said, if you just have that bland generic heel, it's not good. If someone can put their personality into it, and that's what he's doing. He's now has a heel that he can have his own personality. He can make fun of people, and he's out there mocking everybody.
So Jacob starts to pull him down the ladder and looks
up before he pulled him down.
Go right ahead.
Solo,
I hate you. That was my favorite part.
Well, but I mean, he did that before he pulled him down.
Well, he was pulling. He did it before he got him fully down, but he was in the process of bringing him down. I've been waiting for that ever since he started that whole "I love you, Solo." I've been waiting for that. I hate you, Solo, and we finally got it. It was fantastic. And then he laid waste to Solo and left.
Yep, and capitalizing on the situation, the architect
Seth Rollins put up the ladder, climbed up, grabbed the briefcase. So he is Mr. Money in the Bank. Again.
The problem with Money in the Bank ladder matches is there are so many good spots, you can't remember them all right at the time. So it's definitely, there are other spots in there that I'm not remembering right now.
Well, Andrade put on a heck of a show too.
So did LA
he did
Knight.
So many things. LA Knight did great. I honestly thought LA was going to get it. He did not, though. But amazing match. I was blown away by this one. This was one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year so far.
Both the men and the women put on really good spots, and like I said, it's almost impossible to remember them all. And you get focused on this is who won or this one specific moment, and you completely forget about the others. So there are plenty of other great moments in those matches that we're just not remembering at the moment. You should really watch it.
Yeah, matter of fact, I alluded to that last night. I made on our TikTok channel. I threw that out there. I was like, man, if you didn't watch it, jump on Peacock, watch it. It is so worth it. So that brings us to the culmination of Money in the Bank, the main event.
This is the match that I thought was going to be meh and turned out to be really good. And not even because of just like what they did in the ring, but just everybody in the match did their part so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It was starting off John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, and John Cena immediately tags in Logan Paul. And then, it was Cody versus Logan for 5 seconds, and then Logan Paul tags in John Cena. And then Cody and Cena have one strike, and then Cena tags in Logan. Cody's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yep.
And then it ends up being Jey Uso gets in the ring and just gets
destroyed,
completely isolated
for 15, 20 minutes.
Cena and Paul keep him separated from Cody. They tag team him. And one of the things that I was really enjoying,
you called this.
Cena and Logan just kept tagging each other in against each other's wishes, and it caused issues.
Tagging themselves in.
Yeah.
And then they started arguing amongst themselves, and Jay just kind of scooted out a little bit.
It's funny because he's looking back Cody. At him like, they noticed me yet? They noticed me yet? They noticed me yet? And then they noticed, and he's like, oh, shit.
And then he makes the tag, and then it was on. It was on. Cody started ripping it up. Jay and all four of them ended up in the ring. It got to a point where it was confusing as to who the legal man was.
It was. The one part of the match that I thought was kind of new and pretty awesome was Logan Paul got his drone, and I guess he was going to do a frog splash or something, and he ended up getting caught on the top turnbuckle, and while holding his drone, doing like a selfie video.
Took a superplex.
Superplexed. And while he's laying there, you just see Jey Uso land on him.
It was awesome.
And I had never seen that before. Like he'd had like the cell phone or whatever doing the frog splash on Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel, I think it was.
Well, like, and even the announcers, it was right after he hit the his new move,
Pulverizer.
Pulverizer. Yeah, he had just hit that, and even the announcers were like, "Why isn't he pinning him?"
Yeah, like.
And instead, he gets up and he goes to the top rope and he calls for his drone and comes to his hand and he's looking in it and he all of a sudden gets caught. It was a really, really good spot. The match,
and it's something that I'd never seen before, and I'm like, huh. I never would have even thought of that.
No.
Like, I would never have thought to do anything like that. And then
the ref gets taken out of the equation. Cena hits Cody with the belt.
And then Cena gets jumped.
By a mystery person in all black.
It wasn't that mysterious. I knew who it was right away.
I had my suspicions. I don't want to say I guessed who it was when they came in the ring.
The funny thing is, I saw the pants, and I'm like, I know who that is.
I was just hoping and praying I was right, and I was.
Ron Killings is back.
R-Truth.
Although he is going by Ron Killings.
Yeah, he's going to be going by Ron Killings now, but he ended up jumping John Cena, took the world title, hit him, got out of the ring, and that left it all open for
the pin.
Yep. So Cody and Jey win this match.
And it's kind of funny. Like, did you see the thing I sent you where Triple H tried to play it off as being part of the show?
Yeah, did you enjoy the show? You enjoying the show?
It's all part of the show. And I think that was a little bit of a... I don't necessarily think he was claiming that this was all a work. But I think what he's saying is, did you like it? Well, it's all part of the show, meaning, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they had it planned once they decided to bring him back. They said they decided to bring him back over the last 72 hours. So I think the immense outrage over him not being renewed, they decided to bring him back. And his return was a work. In that, he was planned to come back like that. But he was officially let go. And because everyone's like, no, they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think TKO heard the outrage, heard the cries from the fans, and were like, oh, yeah, maybe we fucked up.
Yeah. So I do believe that Triple H worked the return, in a fun way, but I don't believe for a second that his, leaving was fake.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the leaving part was due to TKO looking at bottom lines and all this, that, and the other, and deciding
he's been around for 17 years and has this huge contract. No.
Yeah, and I get their stance, but these are characters that people genuinely love. And R-Truth has put out some of the greatest comedic moments in the history of wrestling, period. And he's become a well-beloved character. And when you let go of characters like that bring so much joy to the fans, you have to expect backlash.
No, and it would be different if it was like, if he said, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to move on.
If he did it on his own terms, yeah. If he was retiring, yeah. But for them to let him go for being amazing.
Only because, we don't want to pay him all this money because he's so freaking funny.
Well, and you know, I gotta shout out TKO. He's worth every penny.
Yeah. Like if you were going to like not renew him for something other than that, it's like, hey, look, we're going in a different direction with the company. Like he's, not in our vision for the future, but we would love to have him back, sort of on a part-time thing, but at least they announced to the fans like, hey, like we're looking towards the future, and our plans for the future, we don't have anything for him long term. So, we would love to have him on like a Legends contract or something so that he can make appearances. But, we don't want him as a regular superstar. Maybe it wouldn't be so.
No, it'd still be.
Oh no, I would be super sad, but I'm saying it wouldn't be such an insult. Because it's not like, oh, well, we're just not renewing his contract because he costs too much money. And they never said anything. They never made an announcement. He did.
That's true.
That's what bugs me. If they would have said, hey, we don't feel like this is working, so we are deciding not to renew his contract, for this reason, maybe I would have had a little more respect for the decision than just like,
trying to float it under the radar.
F you guys. Like, dude, I was fully willing to just be like, I'm not gonna watch much anymore. I'll watch the PLEs, but that's it. Done it before.
See, but I don't want to do that because there are so many other talents on the show that I still want to see, but I don't want to not see R-Truth because of.
Well, I would want, like, they've got to be able to track that somehow, right? As to who's watching and who's not. So if their viewership goes down, then they'll know they fucked up. And I would want them to know, like, hey, once R-Truth got released or unrenewed, all of a sudden their viewership dropped. Like, oh, what? We're not selling out anymore. We're still claiming that we sold out, but like there were a lot of empty looking seats for a quote unquote sold out show. But I don't even believe that anymore because they say they're sold out on every single show.
Yeah.
I think they just buy up tickets.
Buy up all the empty seats.
Hey, it's sold out. Of course, we bought the tickets, but we sold out.
So yeah, that was Money in the Bank. It was an incredible show. It was so worth watching. I was jumping out of my seat when Truth came back, and just it was so good to see.
Oh my god, dude, I was so freaking tired. I couldn't even do that. I'm just like I said, I saw the pants. I'm like, Truth.
I was ready to come out of my skin,
dude. Like if you remember, I just sat there and I just like said, it's Truth. Truth's back.
Yeah, I do.
And I was just sitting there because I'm like, why am I so freaking tired?
Well,
and then I drove home, and then I was awake.
Well, like I had.
Why is your couch so comfy? That's not fair.
I apologize. I guess. No, I don't. I really don't.
I mean, I'm sitting here. Your couch is comfy. I got a blanket on. I'm just like, I could go to sleep right now.
So we would love to hear your thoughts on Money in the Bank. Feel free to drop a comment. Let us know how you felt about it. If you haven't watched it, what do you think about our review?
If you haven't watched it, you shouldn't listen to the review.
But if you did, knowing full well that we were going to give spoilers, then let us know what you think.
Well, I mean, like, why would you listen to a review of something that you didn't see but want to see?
Maybe because you weren't sure if you wanted to watch it or not.
How could you not know if you wanted to watch it?
Well, there were a lot of disgruntled people after Truth got non-renewed.
We wanted Truth, and we got it.
Yeah, the Truth set us free.
That was a short 13 years that CM Punk was talking about.
I know, right? it went by in a flash.
Which one? Barry Allen, Wally West, Bart Allen?
Barry Allen.
All right.
Always.
All right. Thank you for listening, person.
The one.
We really appreciate anybody and everybody that listens.
And we hope you enjoy what we do here. We've been lifelong wrestling fans, and we love talking wrestling, and we'd love to talk with other people who enjoy the same.
And this is just a way to hopefully reach out to people that we've never met and have never had the opportunity to talk to before.
So, let us know what your thoughts are. Check out our TikToks. Or at least I always post every week.
Yeah,
I try to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
I'm not a regular social media person, so.
And I've been covering Raw, WWE Evolve, which I'm going to be honest, I'm really impressed with Evolve. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. It's very reminiscent of the old NWA days when it was like a small little studio.
Yeah, it's like the WWE's Ring of Honor kind of deal.
Yeah. So I've enjoyed it. I think if you haven't watched it yet, give it a shot. It's worth it. And I've also been covering SmackDown, and then we cover the PLEs together, and we have a good time doing it. We hope you have a good time listening.
Reach out if you want to make any additions or suggestions. Otherwise, have a wonderful morning, day, night, whatever it is.
Yeah, whenever you're listening. Have a good one. Later, y'all.
Bye.